Thanks for staying with us. Nigeria's push to secure its energy future is gathering pace, but remains constrained by execution gaps, rising demand and persistent security risks. Under the Petroleum Industry Act, the Midstream, Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund has committed over 287 billion naira to 62 gas projects, attracting an additional $500 million in private capital, raising questions about whether current investments can deliver sustained energy security and industrial growth. Pipeline protection remains a critical challenge. Between 2017 and 2021, Nigeria recorded over 7,000 cases of pipeline vandalism, with losses exceeding 4.3 trillion naira. Now, in early 2025, NNPCL uncovered 179 crude oil theft incidents and multiple illegal connections across the Niger Delta within a single week.
In response, surveillance has expanded through community-based models, with Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited engaging about 35,000 Niger Delta youths to safeguard a trans-Niger pipeline, framing ongoing discussions on energy security reform and asset protection. Join us this morning on Breakfast Central to share industry expert knowledge and prefer possible strategies is the convener of the Niger Delta Progressive Alliance and oil and gas expert commentator, Ambassador Nse Victor Udoh. A warm welcome to you, Ambassador Udoh. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central. Now let's get straight.
Good morning.
Let's get straight into it. Ambassador Udoh, what does energy security mean in the Nigerian context today? When you talk about energy security, what does it mean?
Energy security within Nigerian context cannot be discussed in isolation. It must be understood from a global perspective, and then you now deduce it to what Nigerians are supposed to expect. Energy security is that deliberate approach through policies, actions, and implementation to put together a formula and a workable system that guarantees that citizens will have access to energy to run their day-to-day life. And in the case of Nigeria as an oil-producing nation, it goes beyond that, just citizens having access to having a model that will guarantee Nigerians' ability to explore, transport, and process oil and gas for domestic consumption, or extract, transport, and export oil for sales to get income to run other sectors. So globally, energy security is within the context of the citizens having access to secured energy source. But in Nigeria, it becomes a two-way thing. But there is a unique model that Nigeria has adopted in few years that has gone down the line. In responding to the analysis you gave earlier before you put your question forward concerning vandalism, concerning infractions and all these things, the Nigerian system decided to get a third-party engagement outside the conventional armed forces and police and civil defense, and brought in private companies who are supposed to assist in protecting critical national asset of oil and gas. And to the best of our knowledge, as stakeholders in the Niger Delta and the industry interested persons, this model has worked. Like the example you gave on the Trans-Niger pipeline, the pipeline infrastructure has over the years developed a model that has engaged the people, engaged the communities, and reduced oil incidences to the barest minimum. But for 2026, it's going to be a really interesting year. Reason being that this is a pre-election year in Nigeria, where there's going to be a lot of socio-political combustion. And we are not unfamiliar with the fact that sometimes socio-political combustion always snowball into negative incidences of violence that could sometimes be mismanaged or be misinformed, and then it could go to people expressing their dissatisfaction by tampering with critical national asset of oil and gas. On the second leg is the global reality that we now have. The incidents in Caracas, what you refer to Venezuela, where the rechanneling of their oil from sales to other countries that will now be restricted to purchase by America. It therefore means that those countries that had hitherto bought crude from Venezuela at a highly subsidized rate will now go into other places to seek for how they can get oil at a cheaper rate, cheaper than the conventional selling dictate of OPEC and other international players. It now means that there is going to be that tendency of people available on the high seas to lure people to thinking that having access to unauthorized sales of oil could become an attractive business. It is in this light that as interested party in the oil and gas sector of the Republic, we are calling on these pipelines that did very well last year and year before last, that in some instances like in Bayelsa and Rivers, we could go 2-3 months with 0 infractions, to consolidate, become more active. Pipeline infrastructure, for instance, that controls the entire Trans-Niger corridor must consolidate whatsoever they did last year to the extent that they will be able, ready and capable of responding to whatsoever will be put on the table with the challenges of 2026. Then, to the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, especially the Navy, it is time to be on red alert to making sure that a partnership that you have had with private companies to making sure that we have moved to reaching our OPEC quota, and then critically this year our budget is pegged at 1.84 million barrels per day projection. For this to happen, the armed forces must consolidate, must be more watchful, because there are going to be straying individuals who will want to get oil at a cheaper price than what the international market is offering. We are calling on these people as Niger Deltans that the Nigerian armed forces to consolidate on what they had last year, be more vigilant, be more active in making sure that we don't have negative unauthorized persons come into our international waterways and seek to lure people to make available unauthorized crude to them. Then to the protection companies, we applaud your models you used last year. The large-scale employment of the people, the engagement of the women, the provision of scholarship, all those things you did last year, we appreciate you as Niger Deltans. But we are telling you that this is going to be a challenging year. We therefore call on you to consolidate, do more, and engage the people more this year, even more than. And then lastly, to the federal government of Nigeria, every nation protects what is a source of energy and economic stay. It will be good that the government of Nigeria will look critically to developing newer decisions in making sure that the armed forces that are deployed in the axis of the protection of oil and gas are better equipped to respond to whatever challenges will come, and the private companies should be given expanded responsibilities in terms of budgeting so that they will be able to respond to the challenges that the year is most likely to bring in the reality of being a pre-election year and the reality of the global economic push and pull. But I am very optimistic. I am very optimistic that if these private companies keep on the temple of what they did last year, combining with what the armed forces were able to do, we are going to have a very positive outcome that we will surpass our OPEC quota of 1.5 million barrels per day and meet the ambitious budget projection of 1.8 million 1.84 million barrels per day. Yes, last year in some instances with crude and condensate we were able to get up to 1.8 million barrels, but we're expecting that this year core raw crude should be able to get us up to 1.8 million barrels. Thank you.
Ambassador Udoh, thank you very much. I mean, you've covered a number of the questions we would have loved to ask, which is, very great. But you've been speaking about projections, about, targets and how much you think we will meet this year. I think that, or I should ask, because it's speculative at best. Would you say that, yes, you've talked about the armed forces, if the armed forces does what they need to do, if the private sector does what they need to do, but these are just ifs. As a matter of fact, what can you say is your guarantee for the projection for this year?
My take on this will be that the guarantee is that today, with the kind of relationship that is being enjoyed between the host communities, running from the PIA to the private company engagements involving the people, the guarantee is that the Niger Delta will not be volatile. It is also on record that the federal government of Nigeria is working very hard to reactivate oil exploration in Ogoni. It is also on record that the government of Nigeria is putting documents together to making sure that whatsoever exploration capacity we have, we should be able to explore it. And quickly I will put this. Nigeria's inability to meet OPEC quota or meet our target had never really been as a consequence of the non-availability of oil and gas within our domain. It had always been either logistics challenge, security challenge, or one policy somersault or the other. With the new leadership at the Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority, we believe that the policy direction will be stable, and we also believe that the Niger Delta will be peaceful enough, and we are confident that our people will not deliberately interfere with this exploration. With this strict reality, there is that guarantee that we will be able to meet these projections, because our inability to meet projections in the years back were not as a result of non-availability, but as a result of interference. Now that interference has been significantly addressed, we know that the oil sector in Nigeria is somewhat still very fragile, but putting the management of the security aspect that guarantees the fragility stability, it puts us on a predictable pedestal that we can predict that by this investment, this will be the outcome. The problem were that investment were not producing the expected outcome because of human interference. Now the private security companies have engaged the people to a degree where human interference has been reduced to the barest minimum, especially the private company operating in the Eastern Corridor, referred to as pipeline infrastructure. I think they are doing an excellent job. We are saying that they should consolidate so that the communities can be safe, the creeks will be safe, and then there will be free flow of oil and gas.
Okay. My final question to you, and I'm hoping we can take this question in less than possibly 30 seconds. How has the Petroleum Industry Act, that's the PIA, influenced investment in energy stability? I mean, you've given predictions, but is it fragile? Is it stable? And what does it look like for investors?
The Petroleum Industry Act is one of the best documents that we've ever had in the oil and gas sector of Nigeria. It is from the Petroleum Industry Act that the host communities are being reassured. It is from this document that the private sector engagement is being covered. It is still fragile at this point because the Petroleum Industry Act itself is less than 5 years. One of the things that we are hopeful about is that there are no multiple policy somersaults anymore, because there was no document that was the addendum of whatsoever should be done. The Petroleum Industry Act itself has become a functional document. Yes, there may be need for one or two clause or paragraph amendment, but as it is now, is a workable document. But the fragility of it is that it is being in motion in a very short possible time, and we are hoping that there will be no policy somersault because this document is effective as it is. Thank you.
All right, Ambassador Nse Victor Udoh, thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We look forward to speaking with you again.